So he's my dad's sidekick, and my dad went away this morning, so he's
awesome. All right, so we are right at 10 a.m. So we're gonna get kicked off with our virtual farm tour today. My name is Emma Swarthout, and I work for American Dairy Association Northeast. And I am so excited everyone is here today and able to join us for our live virtual farm tour of JoBo Holstein's in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So to get us kicked off, we're actually going to show a quick drone shot of the farm to really give everyone a big bird's eye view of the layout. So we're going to cue that video here. So this is JoBo Holstein's in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, as I mentioned. We took this video when it was a little drier out. We got fresh rain yesterday on the farm. Just a reminder, if you're tuning in via Facebook, feel free to drop your questions in the comments and we will try to get those answered. If you're tuning in via Zoom, you can drop your questions in the Q&A feature. There's no such thing as a bad question. We want to hear them all and get them all answered for you. So without further wait, Joy is taking us live from the calf area. Let me hand it over to you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my headset just said it disconnected. So I want to welcome everybody to JoBo Holstein Farm. This is a family-owned farm. I, along with my sister, brother-in-law, parents, my nieces, we all work together to take care of all the cattle here at JoBo Holstein Farm. We milk right around 1,050 head, and then with young stock and everything, we have right around 1,800 head of cattle. Very much so a family operation. If my friend that's videotaping spins around, you'll be able to see my niece down there feeding the calves. A lot of family here on the farm. And a lot of the employees that work for us have been with us so long that they're like family. So it's very much so a family operation, as most farms are. So I'm going to start your tour off with our baby calves. These are our calves that after they're born, we bring them to these pens and they live here for about 2.5 months. 2.5 to 3 months at the most. They're fed milk twice a day. When they're first born, we give them colostrum, which is the mother's first milk. We give that to them to help build their antibodies and build their strength and, so they can continue and grow. After that, they're fed milk replacer twice a day, which is a lot like formula that you would feed to a baby. They're fed milk replacer twice a day. And then also they're given free choice grain that would have everything in it that they need to grow healthy and strong. They'll start eating this at roughly a week old. They'll start picking at this and eating it. As you can see here, this calf, she likes attention. She's hoping I'm going to give her some milk, but she already was fed for this morning. This calf here is she's about a month old. And if you see here, she's got ear tags in her ears. That is so that we can we identify her that way. This number, I can type that into a computer and it'll tell me when she was born and everything about her, vaccines she's had and whatnot. Then if you look on her other ear, she's got what's called a radio frequency identification, RFID device. And that has a computer chip in it that anywhere she goes in this country, you'll know that she was born here at JoBo. And then this also, when she gets older in our milking parlor, this will help identify her when she comes in, but I'll explain that later on in the tour. As you can see here, she's sucking my fingers. Calves only have bottom teeth. They do not have top teeth. So when she sucks your fingers, she can't bite you. The only place she has top and bottom teeth is the whole way back here in the back of her mouth. Trying to think what else I can tell you. She's bedded with sawdust now, as I said, or shavings, as I said earlier, or I think as Emma said, it's raining here. So she's a little damp, but they're getting bedded this afternoon when my son is done with school. He's going to come bed our calves for us. So, yeah, I'm trying to think, Emma, is there anything I'm missing talking about my calves?
Yeah, we did actually have a question come in from Ms. Davis. Do the calves ever nurse from their mothers?
So actually, they don't very often nurse from their mothers. There's a few reasons for that. So their mothers, they can carry disease. They can carry things that calves aren't quite strong enough to handle. So we try and feed them their first colostrum for ourselves. Another reason is dairy cows don't necessarily have that motherly instinct. Every now and then you'll watch a cow want to she'll let her calf nurse, but a lot of times they go off and they do something else. They just don't have that instinct. So we tend to take the calf and take care of it ourselves. We let the cow lick the calf off, dry the calf off, and then beyond that, we take the calf here and we take care of her.
Awesome. I've not seen any other questions come in, but I do have a question. What do the names on their ear tags mean?
So this is the name of her. This is her father. So her father's name, which would be her sire, is Fritz. If you flip the tag over, that's actually who her mother is. Her mother's 8105. That just helps us as we move forward in the different groups so that we can identify her and know how we want to move forward with breeding her and raising her for our adult herd. So once she's weaned off of milk, she'll be moved into a group pen with other calves. We do that. I kind of contribute the group housing that we do. We start with like 6, 7 calves. We start them there. It's kind of like when your kids go off to preschool, you're kind of just getting them introduced to other kids. Well, we're trying to get them introduced to other calves and learning them how to herd and be a group. So once she goes through that part, then when she's about 15 months old, 14, 15 months old, we'll start preparing her to have her first calf. A dairy heifer will have her first calf at about 2 years old. So they carry them 9 months, just like people would. So we breed her about 14 to 15 months old so that she'd have her first calf when she's 2, and then she would go into our milking herd.
Awesome. Oh, we have quite a few questions flying in now. So from Aaron Meyer, do you get the first colostrum by hand? And I'm gonna take a gander that means as far as milking the cow, how do you get that colostrum?
So we'll take her into our parlor and we'll milk that milk into a pail, and then we'll take that to the calf with a bottle. So yes, we'll milk the cow to get her first colostrum.
And then also from Melanie Davis, are the calves bottle fed in the beginning, or do they have a natural instinct to drink from a container?
So as you can see, they have a sucking instinct. So when they're first born, we will feed them with a bottle, but we eventually teach them to drink out of a bucket. And the reason we teach them to drink out of a bucket is that teaches them to eat feed faster. It teaches them how to drink water quicker. It just kind of instills the natural instinct that they need to grow. So once they're healthy and strong enough that we can start teaching them to drink out of a bucket, we will do that. I would think that they were probably about 2 days old till they're drinking out of a bucket. Some are older, some are younger, of course, but we try and get them drinking out of a bucket sooner so that they start eating feed sooner, so that they start drinking water sooner, and it just starts the whole growing process quicker.
Awesome. And then from Kayla Word, do they ever get to play in the fields?
So when they're older, so when these guys get older, like 2 months, then they get into group housing where they get to play with other calves. And then as they grow older and get to our breeding age and stuff, then they go to our breeding farm where they do have pastures that they can be in. Once they become milking cows, they are not in pastures, but they get pastures when they're dry period. And I'll explain that when we get to the Freestall barn.
Awesome. And then what is the average weight of your calves from Leilani?
So when a calf's born, their average weight is probably right around 90 to 95 pounds. You can have calves born as heavy as 125 to 150, and you can have calves born as light as 70 to 80 pounds. But I would say our average is right around 90 to 95 pounds.
And then from Dan Riley, and this will be a really great segue into our next portion, is how many years can they produce milk?
So cows can produce milk. It just depends on their health, their environment, and how everything goes for them. A cow can produce milk, well into her teenage years. Just depends how often she breeds back. So ultimately, a cow to make milk has to have a calf, and when they have a calf, they come into their peak production probably around 90 days to 100 days after having that calf. The further they go away from having the calf, the less milk they will give. So in order for them to refresh their milk supply, they have to have another calf. So if we can get them to have a calf roughly every 13, 14 months, that keeps their milk supply fresh. And yeah, a cow can live to be quite old. Just depends on other health environments, just like you and I, if everything's healthy and goes well, you can live to be into your 90s or even 100. But there's different things that go into it that sometimes can change what happens to them. But here, the average cow is about 4.5 to 5 years old, and it is our goal to get them to be here as long as possible.
Awesome. And then right before we transition to the next period of our tour, how often do you feed the calves? Every day?
They get fed twice a day, every day. My niece spends a lot of time up here in this barn working with the calves, monitoring calves, but they get a gallon of milk twice a day, and then they get free choice feed that they can eat anytime they want, and fresh water.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to keep moving. Joy is actually going to head over to the Freestall barn, but while she does that, we're going to show a pre-recorded video of the parlor area. Unfortunately, we can't go live in the parlor just due to the steel equipment that's in there, as you'll see in the video. So we did record a video for you all to enjoy, to see the milking process and then where they store the milk until the milk truck can come pick it up.
Now we're in the milking parlor, Farm milking parlor. It was built in 1997, so it's starting to show its age, but it still does an excellent job of milking our cows 3 times a day, 365 days a year. We can milk, as I said, 36 cows at a time in here. We focus on milking one side, which is 18 cows, and then while they're milking, then we'll focus on milking the other side, which is 18 cows. Everything that makes our parlor work is actually in the basement. It's actually a subway parlor, so it's actually underneath of us. All that's up here is the milkers themselves and the meters that we use to, the computer systems that put the milkers on, but all the mechanics and everything of the parlor are below us. I'm checking the milk on the cow to make sure like everything's healthy with the milk. And then I'm gonna dip her with an iodine foaming cream or foamer that helps sterilize and clean the teats off. And then I'll wipe this all off to get their teats good and clean. And then I'll apply the milker. An average cow will milk out in about 3 to 4 minutes. Some a little longer, depends how much milk she gives. But I would say an average cow here milks out in about 3.5 minutes. We milk our cows 3 times a day, 365 days a year. We do this to help keep them healthy. It keeps their milk, their udders don't get as full, doesn't stress them as much. Our cows are currently averaging 82 pounds a day, and that equivalates to approximately 10 gallons of milk. So then as we see here, the cows will be milking out, and you'll see, like I always tell people that when a cow comes into the parlor, they kind of look like a grape. They're full, they're plump, and as they milk out, it'll try to change to a raisin. You'll see they get kind of wrinklier. Their udders will get like a softer texture to it. And everything in here is computerized, and it senses when the milk flow slowed down so that the cow, then the milker knows to come off. Most times, as I said, it takes about 3.5 minutes. You do have an occasional cow that will take up towards 5, but 3.5 minutes is pretty much so typical. We don't really want the cows to be standing in the parlor more than about 8 minutes. A cow's job is really not to be standing in the parlor a lot. She's supposed to come in, produce her milk, and we want to get her back to her comfort in her barn as quick as possible. So then we dip them when we're finished with an iodine solution. So then once the cows are done milking, I can show you where the milk goes to from here. I can take you there and we'll head there next. So in here, this is the milk house. The reason we call it the milk house is because it's where the milk lives. So we were just in the parlor and you saw the cows being milked. The milk actually is pumped over to these big bulk tanks. These bulk tanks hold 6,000 gallons of milk. These tanks are emptied every 16 hours here at the farm. Now, when we're bringing that milk over from the cow's body temperature is 101.3. So that milk is 101.3 degrees. But it is our goal to get it as cooled down as quick as possible. So as it's flowing through the pipes to these bulk tanks, it goes through what's called a plate cooler. And that is a system that helps to cool the milk even faster so that when it hits these tanks, it's already started the cooling process. Now these tanks here get the milk as cold as quick as possible. So we have to get it to roughly 38 degrees. So this tank here just started filling this morning. So it's currently at 43. By the time, within 3 hours, it should be at roughly 34 to 38 degrees is where we want it. You don't want it to go under 34 because then you start flirting with the freezing process and you don't want the milk to freeze. So it's always our goal to keep it as cold as possible. Every time this milk is emptied or this tank is emptied, it is sterilized and washed with a sterilization system that we have to be inspected once a month by our co-op, Land O'Lakes, to make sure that we pass all those health and safety guidelines. We have to score at least a 92% or higher. And it is our goal here at JoBo to score as close to 100, if not 100, as possible. If we don't score those scores, if they find something wrong, we can't ship milk. It's very, very important that we are shipping the healthiest and cleanest product that we can possibly. So in that process of checking the cleaning process to make sure everything, our milk inspector also evaluates our protocol for how we take care of our cows. It is very important that we do not sell any milk with antibiotics in it because it's against the law. So none of our animals, none of the milk that hits this tank has antibiotics in it. Now, if you have the question about whether we treat an animal with an antibiotic, if we have an animal that is sick, we will treat her with an antibiotic. But that being said, she no longer can go in the main milk stream. I can no longer sell her milk, and I have to send her, she lives in her own barn, a hospital barn, which at some point we will see. She'll live in the hospital barn until she became healthy and passed all the tests so that I can send her back into the mainstream. This can take anywhere from 10 days to as long as 35 or 40 days to get a cow clean enough to resell her milk. So when we want to take care of our cows, we want to do everything we can to make sure they're healthy, but we also want to make sure we are selling a healthy and clean product to our consumers. If it accidentally happened that a farmer was to sell antibiotics in her milk, the milk is tested. So every time a tanker comes to pick up our milk, it is tested. And knock on wood, it has never happened here, but if it would happen that there would be antibiotics in the milk, we'd have to dump that load of milk. We are not allowed to sell it. If it passes and gets through, then we can start to get fined. We can get fined from our co-op. We can actually be shut down. We can actually not sell milk. So it's a pretty serious thing to sell milk with antibiotics in it. Once it's tested here, then it gets tested before it's unloaded at the bottling plant, and then it's tested again before it goes into the process. So it goes through several tests to make sure there's nothing in it. And again, if it gets caught, it equals large fines. It equals not being able to sell your milk. It's just not something we would want to do, or anybody would want to do for that matter.
Awesome. So Joy's out in the cow barn. We had quite a few questions come in about the milking process. So I'll relay those to you, Joy.
Okay.
Real quick though, going back to the calves from Fritz Middle School 8th grade class, they did ask what is in that solid food mixture that you give the calves?
So that solid food mixture has everything in it that helps them grow. Just like you and I need all the main food groups, so do they. So in that food mixture, there's a grain or a pelletized grain in there that actually gives them like all the vitamins and minerals they need. There's chopped up corn. If you saw and I wish I had that handful with me because I could show you, like, there's pieces of corn. We actually break the corn up so that it's easier for the calf to digest. There's various additives, minerals, vitamins, just basically it's what they need to get them growing and healthy. Once they get old enough that their stomachs, because they have 4 stomachs, the ruminants, once they're old enough that their stomachs all start working, then we'll start feeding them a forage. We'll start feeding them a hay, a balanced ration of different forages so that they can continue to develop their stomachs and continue to grow.
Awesome. So in reference to the milking process, From Aaron Meyer, what do you look for when testing the milk prior to cleaning the teats and placing the milker on? And how do you know if it's not good? You talked about that stripping process. What exactly are you looking for?
So in that, I'm looking for anything wrong with the milk, like mastitis, off color, anything that's just not clean and white. We're looking for that. Unfortunately, cows can get mastitis. They can get various kinds of mastitis. They can get coliform. Just like a woman can get the same thing whenever she's, taking care of breastfeeding her baby. She can get that too. So I'm just looking for that, just to make sure the milk is clean and nothing's wrong. Because if there is something wrong with the milk, that's a sign that the cow's sick, and we want to treat the cow and take care of her as quick as we can so that she doesn't get severely sick and she can stay in the herd.
Awesome. And then from Ariel Doyle, how fast do they make milk? So maybe, how fast do they let down, and what does the milk creation process look like for a cow?
So if you watched in that video, you saw that I was like prepping them. So a cow needs that stimulation. So she needs to have, like if I was just to have her walk in the barn and put the milker on her, it would take her a while to tell her brain to let down her milk. So when you saw me, I would strip her out and then I'd wipe her off. That's all a stimulation process to help her brain connect that it's time to milk out. A cow needs that. It needs that stimulation to do that. I think they say that from the time that she comes into the parlor, the stimulation process starts, like she starts connecting that it's time to let down her milk. Then from the time that you do that whole process, I believe they want about 40 seconds to 50 seconds to go by so that she has plenty of time to stimulate that let down process. Okay. If she lets down too soon and you don't apply the milker, it's possible you're going to have to do the process over again, because she could stop that let down process and you got to start it over again. So does that answer that question?
Yeah. And then from Susan Platt, how many tankers are going into the farm daily? So maybe tankers of milk specifically?
Well, actually, the funny thing is that video we had to do, I think, Emma, we did it a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and our cows are actually milking better now. That video, I think it says 82, and currently our cows are milking about 90 pounds a day. They're doing really well. So right now we're shipping about a tanker load of milk about every 14 hours. So the trucks are in and out of here pretty regularly.
Awesome. And then one more, and I'm going to let you get into the Freestall operation. So are pregnant cows still milked? From Emily Whitmere?
Yes, the pregnant cow is still milked. So we'll breed her after she has a calf. We'll wait till she's about 70 days to get her, so that she has time to get her cleaned up, I say, from calving, to make sure everything's healthy and everything's feeling good with her. And then we'll start to get ready to breed her. So at about 70, 80 days, we'll breed her to have her next calf. So once she's confirmed pregnant, she will milk in the herd until she's about 7 months pregnant. And then we will put her in what's called a dry period. And that's kind of like, I contribute that like to a vacation, like for school kids, or you guys go on a vacation from work. We'll give her a vacation from giving milk, just to kind of prepare herself to have her next calf and get ready to start the process over again. So we'll dry her off at about 7 months pregnant.
Awesome. All right. So there are more questions, but I'm going to let Joy continue the tour, and listen closely because she actually might answer some of the questions that you have. So take it away. Tell us where you are.
So one of the things I didn't say earlier is we ship all our milk to Land O'Lakes. So if any of you guys want to ever, when you're at the stores, you'll see that there's Land O'Lakes butter, Land O'Lakes products. That's where our milk goes to. So this barn here is our Freestall barns. So the reason it's called a Freestall barn is because the cows are free to lay in the stalls where they want. So the reason we're housed in these barns is because it's easier to take care of them, and it makes less of a carbon footprint on the ground and the land if we can keep them all in a barn like this. So we do everything we can to keep them as comfortable as possible. Their stalls are bedded with sand. The sand is actually, they say ultimately that a cow should be so comfortable that I should be able to jump in the air and land on my knees and it shouldn't hurt me. Now, unfortunately, my knees are not in the best shape, so I'm not brave enough to do that, but we do everything we can to keep our cows as comfortable as possible. So those stalls are bedded every other day with sand. And on the opposite days, we actually take a big rake and actually groom the stall, so it's always getting fresh sand put on top, so we're always stirring it. And then every time the cows leave to go to the barn, we actually take like a garden rake and we actually rake the stall off so there's no wet sand there from like where they've did their business at. The barn is flushed out with water. Every time the cows leave the barn, we flush it, and then it goes through a reclaiming process where we reclaim the sand and let it dry out to reuse. And I will show you that process after a bit. So in this barn here, you'll see there's that black pipe running above the cows. That's a sprinkler system. So a cow's ultimate temperature that she'd like the weather to be. I mean, I bet you today she's actually thinking it feels pretty good. Maybe a little bit warm for her. She likes it about 45, 50 degrees in that range. If it gets much hotter than about 70, those sprinklers start to come on. We have them set up so that the cow can get wet and then she can go stand under fans to be cooled off. We try and keep them as comfortable and as cool as possible. In the wintertime, when it's really cold, she doesn't like the extreme cold either. So we actually have curtains that will shut on the sides and we can shut the ends up to kind of seal it off. So, I mean, it's still plenty of airflow in here and we still might have fans going just to keep the airflow moving. However, her body heat, a cow's temperature is about 101.3. So they generate a lot of heat. So in the middle of winter, when it's really cold out, I can be in this barn in maybe, not as many clothes as you would be if you were outside. Maybe a Carhartt bibs and just a light sweatshirt, and I'm probably pretty comfortable in here. So the cows, we do everything we can to keep them as comfortable and happy as possible. So if you look in the front of the cows, this is the feed that they get. It's called TMR, which stands for total mixed ration. And as I said earlier, when I was feeding the calves, showing you the calves, they need, just like you and I, they need everything in their diet to be healthy and strong and to produce quality milk. So we actually do what's total mixed ration, a TMR, where we mix everything in it to show what we feed the cows. Now, it's kind of, I showed you, I can't, because of the Wi-Fi and time, I can't take you out and show you actually where we mix the feed, but I did separate a few of the feeds out. And I'll show you that here in a minute. We actually have a feed truck that we dump all the feeds in and we mix it. It's a lot like, I'm sure a lot of your parents have KitchenAid mixers. You put it all in there and mix it together and it turns into a casserole. So the funny thing is some cows will sort through it. Just like you and I might sort through our meal and say, oh, we don't like carrots or we don't like onions. Cows will do that same thing. So it's kind of funny if you watch them eat, they'll kind of make bowls in there and you can see them kind of sorting out what they like. But a cow will actually make a bowl and she'll want to, eat. That'll make her eat. And we'll come through and about every hour and a half, 2 hours, we'll push the feed in. So that makes her want to re-dig out, make a new bowl. So that makes her want to eat more because you filled in her bowl. So she's got to dig it out and eat another bowl of feed. So we do that so that she's always getting fresh feed stirred to her. So we're going to walk down here to the table and I'll show you the different things that are in the feed. And as we're walking down, I want to show you some of the different breeds we have here. The black and white cows are Holsteins. And then this is a brown Swiss here. So the funny thing is this cow's name is actually Grace. She's very friendly. So if we see a Jersey, I will point out a Jersey. A Jersey tends to be a smaller, I don't know if you can see, there's one back in the stall behind this brown Swiss. They're a smaller frame cow. They say they're more efficient because they eat less and make almost as much milk. And then down here, this one here, this is a red and white Holstein. She's the same as the black and white ones. It's just her color is red rather than black. So it's just a few of the different breeds we milk here. So here on this table, I got some of the different things that we do here on the farm so that I could show you everything. So first thing I want to show you is the sand that we use. So we reclaim sand here. So our water flushes out the barns and it goes into these grates at the end of the barns and it goes through a process where we separate the sand out. So this is the reclaimed sand here. And as you see, it's pretty dry. It takes about 6-8 weeks till we get it all reclaimed and resettled out. But this sand is a lot like what you would be on in the beach, except maybe a little darker because it goes through that cleaning process. So that kind of shows the sand that we use. So some of the other things I want to talk about is the feed. So this is what the feed actually looks like when it's all mixed together, okay? Funny how cows can sort out what they don't like. But actually in here, there's corn, there's soybeans, there's chopped up hay, there's chopped up corn stalks, like when you see the stalks in the field, we actually chop that up to feed them. But the funny thing is the corn, we don't actually, you know, just like you and I don't necessarily digest the corn kernel correctly, neither do cows. So actually the machine that we chop with actually will crimp the corn, will like make it into really small pieces. So like right here, you can see that's a really small piece of corn. I'm trying to sort it out. So it'll actually break it up. But then the other thing we do is we actually grind up the corn so that's really fine. So we will actually grind corn up so it makes it really easy for cows to digest. Because ultimately they can't digest it. They're no different than you and I. If it's not fine enough, they can't digest it, and then they don't get the nutrients out of it that they need. So we will grind it up and feed it to them like that. Now, I said there was soybeans in it. There's all kinds of products that you can feed cows. This is the soybean. So if you see a field of soybeans, we actually take the bean and we grind it up and we feed that to them. It's kind of fascinating, all the different things you can feed cows. Sometimes we actually can feed cows. We've in the past fed them Hershey's chocolate. We've actually fed them, I'm trying to think, cottonseed. Like not they take the cotton off the seed to make your shirts or your clothing, and we actually will feed that seed. They'll actually break it up and we'll feed that seed to them. Gosh, we've also fed brewer's grain. For those of you that know, brewer's grain is what goes into making a beer. We've actually fed that to our cows. So it's kind of fascinating, all the different things you can feed to a cow. One of the other things that we feed is that cows need a certain level of salt. So they get free choice salt. This is salt like on your pretzels. So this actually comes like, this is overrun from a pretzel factory that's not far from here. So this is pretzel salt. And they need that in their diet. So we actually we have free choice salt licks that they can actually get in and they can lick this up. Now I said earlier that we feed them chopped up. So this is what the corn looks like chopped up. So that stalk out in the field, when you see a cornfield, it's actually, we chop the whole stalk, we chop the seed, we break the seed up. So that's actually what the corn looks like after it's went through that formation process. So it has to ferment for a certain amount of time. So when it goes into our trenches, of course it's green, but we want to let it ferment and age so that it's healthy and it gets all the right nutrients for the cows. And then, as I said, it also has chopped up hay or silage in it, and that's what this looks like. We chop it up for them and makes it easier for them to digest. So, I mean, that's just a quick overview. I wish I had planned here to have the truck sitting here so that you could see the feed actually get put in front of the cows, but we were just a little bit behind him. But it's actually a big mixer, and it all goes in and mixes everything together. And then we put it in front of the cows. And as you can see,
Joy, we were able to show them a quick picture of the mixer that we had. So they saw a picture at the very least.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. So that's kind of like a quick overview of how we feed them. We have a nutritionist that helps us make sure our rations balance correctly so that we make sure the cows are getting everything they need to be healthy and strong. I know that some people ask why dairy cows tend to be thinner than beef cows. Dairy cows, I would call them like they're marathon runners. They're that real athletic, you know, need to stay really fit and trim. A beef cow is more like a bodybuilder. It's bulking muscle. So it's just the different premises of what they are. So we have a nutritionist that helps us make sure our diets are balanced completely correct so that we can make sure our cows are getting everything they need to be 100% healthy.
Awesome. We're getting a couple of questions about the reproduction process. So there's been questions of, do you have bulls? How many do you maintain? And how do you keep a schedule for the breeding process? Which I think is going to have a really interesting answer for our viewers, if you want to talk about that.
Okay, so the breeding process actually is we do not use bulls here. We actually do artificial insemination. And the reason we do that is because it's actually safer for the people that are working with the animals, and actually safer for the cow because then she's not actually getting ridden by a bull and getting beat up by a bull. So we actually do artificial insemination here. And actually when a cow is in heat and ready to calve, or ready to be bred, not calve, ready to be bred, she actually will stand. So one cow will ride her and she'll actually stand still. So that's how you know when she's ready to be bred. She'll stand there. So then when we're ready to breed her, we actually, we have a tank that has units of semen in it that we can pick out the right mating for that cow. So I can look at the cow and I can figure out what she needs to help her stay in the herd longer, and I can breed her specifically to a bull to help her with those traits. So once she's bred, she'll be bred back at about 70 days. She'll start showing heats. They'll actually show heats within, and heat is what I mean whenever it's time, like a cow is actually ready to be bred to have a calf. They actually, some cows will show a heat as early as like a week after having calving, and that's really too soon to breed them. So if there was a bull with them, they would get bred right away, and that's not really ultimately what you want to do. You want to give them enough time for their bodies to heal and regroup from having a calf. So we actually will start to breed them about 70 days after they had that calf.
Awesome. And then from Thompson High School, and actually in Georgia, they're tuning in.
Wow.
Does what they eat affect how the milk will taste?
Gosh, I don't know how to answer that. I don't think it'll necessarily change the way their milk tastes. I like good quality milk. So I think all cows' milk tastes good. Emma, maybe you have an opinion on that. I don't know if I really think it'll change the way they milk.
Yeah, so
it'll change the volume of milk they give, and it'll change the fat content, but I don't know will it necessarily change the flavor.
Yeah, that's what I was going to chime in, Joy. You know, as she mentioned, they work with a nutritionist. Part of the reason they do that is to make sure they're giving the cows the right amount to affect the components in the milk. So like she mentioned, butter, fat content, protein content. But as far as flavor profile, there won't be a very significant difference that you can actually taste. It's more or less in the processing and the handling of the milk can sometimes impact the flavor a little bit, but not so much feed.
So a misconception about milk though is you read like you can buy milk fat free, you can buy 2% milk, you can buy whole milk. The funny thing about that is all milk is roughly 97% fat free. It's a misconception about how they sell it or how they advertise it. So when you're feeding a cow, we're actually feeding a cow to get a balanced product out of her. So we want the protein in the milk to be, we want the protein to be about 3.5%, 3 to 3.5%, and we want the fat to be right around 4%. So it's funny that, the average milk supply that's produced is probably about 3 to 3.5% of fat in their milk. So actually, when you go buy a product at the store, if you see fat free, that means they took something out of it. In all actuality, all milk is about 97% fat free. So that's just a kind of little interesting tidbit.
So we had 2 questions about the birthing process. How do you know when a cow's ready to give birth? And do you ever have to help them deliver?
So actually I spend so much time with my cows that actually, yes, you can tell a cow, if you spend enough time with her, she's actually, she's got the personality, and she comes like a dog. So you can kind of tell when she's not feeling 100%, when something's going on. So when a cow is getting close to calving, you can tell that she starts to feel uneasy. You may see her lift her tail up, walk around. She also, if you look like behind her pin bones, you'll see the skin sometimes will dip in there. That just kind of means the whole process is starting. So you can tell a cow's getting ready to calve. Now, a really old cow, sometimes it'll be so quick that, gosh, she'll go from eating to having a calf and back to eating. So it's kind of funny. Some cows are different. And then, yes, we do have to help occasionally. Sometimes they can have them on their own. Sometimes you do have to help. We prefer them to have them on their own, but we always are there for assistance. We have somebody watching our calving pen at all times so that we're ready to help them if need be.
Awesome. And then how many cows do you have on the farm from Cynthia Ray?
So we milk, we're milking right around 1,050 cows. And then with young stock, dry cows and everything, there's right around 1,800 head. Now, they don't all live here on the farm because we don't have them all housed here. We actually have them housed at a few other farms. But that's how many cattle we own here at JoBo.
And how many employees help take care of the cows?
So right now we have 7 Hispanic employees. We have and then we have four other employees that have been with us for years. We actually have one Hispanic family that has been with us. Jose has been with us for over 20 years. We've actually helped him get his citizenship. We've helped his wife and son and children get their citizenship. So it's our goal here to have employees with us as long as possible so that they become family. Everybody else that works here is family. So at any given day, there's probably up to 20 plus people here, but probably at least half of them are always family, if not more. So it's it takes an army to take care of all this, but you have to love it.
Yeah. All right, one more question before we move on, because I want to make sure they see your awesome manure management system. But how do you know or identify if you have a sick cow from Dan Riley?
So as I said earlier, I spend a lot of time with the cows. So you start to learn their personalities. You start to learn, where they lay, how they hang out, how they act, and you start to figure out how she's feeling. So if you look at a cow, if she's hanging back from the feed, that's a sign. If she's hanging back from the other cows, that's a sign. Her eyes will be sunk in. She may have cold ears. Her nose may be dry. She may have a distended look in her stomach, where maybe her stomach is maybe a little bigger than it should be, or vice versa. Maybe she'll be tucked up and not looking like she feels good. You spend so much time with them that you start to learn how their reactions are to different things. So yeah, it's kind of like, and then once I think that maybe she's not feeling well, then I will do an exam on her where I will listen to her heart, I will listen to her lungs, I'll listen to her stomach, see how that it's moving. I'll take her temperature. I'll check various things on her just to see how she's feeling, and then take care of her accordingly.
Awesome. All right, so let's head over to your manure management system. And on the way over, if you could explain to us, how do you logistically rotate the cows through the milking parlor?
So the cows go to the parlor. We actually have an order. They need to be milked in the same order every day, because cows are creatures of habits. They get into a routine and they don't like that routine change. So once they get into a routine, we try to keep them there. So we start with anything. When we start milking, we start with what just calved, so that they can get milked first and we can get them back out to their barn. Then we go kind of in an age order after that. It's just the way it works out. We kind of run through the groups. So when we milk here, we start in this barn that you're looking at. This is our oldest barn on the farm. We start in that barn, milk those cows, and then work to the barn that we were just at. And we try and keep that routine so that every 8 hours, the same routine. So it's kind of funny. You open the gate when it's their time to go, and they'll just start going because they know that, hey, it's my time to go to the parlor. It's my time to get milked.
Awesome. All right. So tell us more about this sand separation system that you have and how you utilize manure on the farm.
So we have to have a nutrient management, manure waste management plan, and to get rid of and take care of the land and our ground correctly, we have to have a nutrient management plan here. We actually are a CAFO, which is a concentrated animal
feeding operation.
Thank you. I'm like drawing a blank. The gentleman that's actually doing the video, he's like showing me eating. But anyway, so we are that. That just means that we have over 500 heads, so we have to have a strict plan of regulations of how we take care of things. My brother actually handles that, so he has to actually come up with, we have to make sure we're spreading the right amount of manure on the fields. We have to make sure we have plenty of place to go with it. He has to make sure that he's not spreading it anywhere close to a stream or, it's a lot of regulations, a lot of things that go into it. We recently built what's called a separator. So I told you earlier that the sand runs through, once we flush it, the manure goes into what's called a sand channel, and the sand is actually separated from that. Then it comes into this facility right here. This is our separator. So it goes through a process where we separate the solids out of it and squeeze it down so that it becomes what you could spread on your gardens for fertilizer. So I'm going to take you through that process and show you what it is. I'm hoping my brother's in here so he can kind of show us some of this stuff too. But as you see, the end product, the end product's kind of fascinating. That not too long ago, this was actually manure right out of a cow, and now look how soft it is. And actually the funny thing is it doesn't even smell necessarily like manure. So it's kind of fascinating that it gets down to that clean. So I'll take you in here and show you how that process works.
Awesome. And a really cool thing about those manure solids that Joy just showed us is some farms that have this system actually use that for bedding on the farm. So there's a lot of different ways you can utilize it.
So if you look here, so when I said the manure goes through channels and it runs through, it actually, once it goes to the separation of the sand separation process, then the manure comes over to these pits here, and these go through a separation process where it's taking the solids out, and the solids will go into this barn. Now, everything here has tunnels that it goes, so we have tunnels that go underground connecting to other pits so that we have liquid pits, we have solid pits. We do everything we can to make sure that we are doing the best for our environment. So this here is showing how it's coming in and it's stirring up to try and separate the solids out. So then I'll show you where it goes into next.
And then from Woodrow Wilson High School, do you sell that product to other farms, those solids?
Yes, we actually do. We actually sell it to, gosh, I don't want to say the name of the business because I don't know how that all works, but we sell it twice a week. A trucker comes in here and hauls it out, and then it's turned into bags and sold in different stores to be sold for fertilizer for people's fields.
Oh, awesome.
Or gardens or whatever. So I want to show you where it goes to once it goes through those pits out that I just showed you outside. It comes into these separator vats. And this shakes it down so that it's getting the solids out of it so that it can be turned into the fertilizer that you saw over there. So this will shake it down, take it through that process. It's getting the liquids out. The liquids, once it's got it all shaken out, the liquids will go back out to our manure pits so that we can spread it on our fields. And then this will go through this process. And then it goes through an elevator up to a big vat, which I can show you the vat on the other side of the wall. It'll actually break it down and make it so that it's what that product is that I showed you at the end. So we'll take you over there and show you the vat.
Awesome. We did have a question from Melanie Davis. Do you milk the cows overnight?
Yes. Yes, the cows are milked 3 times a day. About every 8 hours they're milked.
Awesome.
So this is the vat where that manure that I was showing you up there, the solids go to. This vat breaks it down, and then whenever it's went through the whole breaking down process, it'll unload it out into that pile so that we can send it out twice a week with a trucker.
Awesome. So thank you so much for showing us that process. We are at 10:47. So for those of you who do need to jump off, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will have this tour recorded up on our Facebook page at American Dairy Association Northeast and our YouTube page so that you can share it with others or rewatch it. For those of you who don't have to jump off right away, we can take a few more minutes of Joy's time to answer through some of these questions that are still in the chat. If you do need to jump off and your question was not answered, you can find Joy on Facebook at JoBo Holstein Farm, and feel free to send your questions directly to her, or you can send them to my organization. I can get the answer for you. So with that, if you don't mind, Joy, I'll jump into a few more of these questions.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. So we've had a couple questions on how has the pandemic and COVID affected your business? Has it changed anything at all? And what have you done to help with that?
Actually, my brother just showed up.
Okay.
So I'm going to introduce you to him just so he can say hi, John. I kind of walked through this already. Okay. So I kind of already walked through it for him. This is my brother, John. He actually takes care of all this. Him, along with my sister, Josie, my brother-in-law, Dale, and my parents, we all run this together. So, John, I kind of walked them through how we break this up, that process, or anything else that we should tell them, nutrient management, anything like that.
I don't know what to tell you. As far as this product, we sell this product, and the reason we sell this product is for a nutrient management purposes, because we have, through regulations, we have to keep our nutrients in check as to that we are putting on what crop uptake takes off. So this takes phosphorus out of our manure, which we tend to have too much phosphorus previous to this. So in order to keep our phosphorus levels from getting out of hand in our soils and to put enough phosphorus out there for the crop, this takes about a third of our phosphorus out. Nitrogen and potash we tend to not have a problem with, but most dairies have a problem with phosphorus. Most animal agriculture has a problem with phosphorus. So that's what this is chasing. It also gets our water cleaner for a better sand product, but the main thing it's chasing is to get the phosphorus, some of the phosphorus off the farm. We are selling it. It's being sold and it's ending up in a potting soil. If you go to Walmart, you can buy potting soils. That's where this is one of the products that's in that potting soil.
Awesome. Do you work with experts to monitor the levels in your soil?
Do you work with an expert to monitor your soils? You do, correct?
We work with several experts. We work with an agronomist. We also work with nutrient management experts that come in. We also work with regulatory experts. Well, I don't know if call them experts. Regulatory people that come in from DEP and Soil Conservation Office. So we work with multiple experts.
Awesome. No other questions came in about the manure management or nutrient management specifically, but thank you so much for answering those for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we'll go back to that COVID question, how have you, we actually did get a question, Joy. What's the dog's name?
The dog's name is Jeb. He's my dad's sidekick, and my dad went away today, so he's looking for anybody that'll be his buddy until my dad gets back.
But yeah, how has COVID impacted your business, and how have you worked through that this year?
So COVID has affected our business like it's affected a lot of businesses. When the schools closed in the spring, it did a huge thing to our milk supply. You might move some. It did a milk supply, not necessarily for us to make the milk, but then they had trouble finding a place to go with the milk because the schools were closing and restaurants were closed. So that made it harder for people to move the milk. So therefore, our milk price went down. So we are regulated by the government on what our milk price is. And when it became hard to move the milk, then it made our milk price go down because they had to find an avenue to get rid of the milk, or not get rid of, but market the milk. A lot of farms in the spring were having to dump their milk down the drain, which we don't have a big profit on a farm. Like, you kind of maintain, you decide to farm because it's a way of life that you want to do, and you like to take care of the land, the cows, and ultimately you like to feed the world. But there's not a huge profit margin in making milk. So whenever a farmer has to dump the milk, that makes it a little more of a challenge for them, because they have to make a certain amount of profit to be able to pay to take care of their cattle. So in the spring, there was a lot of farms that had to do that. Fortunately, we did not have to dump any milk. We actually tried to help some other farmers out by donating a load of milk to the food banks, and actually donated milk to the this area's food banks. So we were trying to do what we could to help. Just like you, though, we had to start being careful about, anybody that was working with somebody that could have tested positive with COVID, we had to pay attention to that. And getting things done here on the farm, different businesses were closed. So it just was a domino challenge, but we did everything we could to keep making sure everything was going smoothly here on the farm.
Awesome. How many calves do you currently have on the farm?
Calves?
Yes.
So right now there's about 120 calves on milk. So that varies from times of years. We'll have more on milk, less on milk, but right now there's about 100 to, I would say, right around 120 on milk.
Awesome. And then we had a question. Do you get a lot of grief and pushback from animal activist groups? And then how do you handle that?
So yeah, we personally don't get a ton of animal activist groups. Occasionally we'll get people that are questioning the way we do things. But I try and be honest with them. I show them what we do here, show them how much we love our cows, how much we do everything we can to take care of our cows. That's why I do the Facebook page. That's why I do the JoBo page, so that we want to try and make ourselves as transparent as possible, so that they can actually see here that everything we do is about taking care of the cows, taking care of the land, and taking care of what we truly love. So when I'm dealing with an activist group, I kind of try and look at it head on and tell them what's going on, so that they they can understand it. Because a lot of times those activist groups don't really understand farms. 9 times out of 10, they've probably never even been close to a cow on a dairy farm. So usually if I can show them what's really going on, I can kind of deter the negative parts of it.
Awesome. And then what are your thoughts on raw milk versus pasteurized milk? Can you talk a little bit about that difference?
So I grew up, when I was a kid, I drank raw milk. However, once I had children of my own, my doctor recommended that I buy milk for them, and I've just never went back to drinking raw milk. There's a reason that it's pasteurized and homogenized, although it's a 100% healthy product. So some people might say raw milk tastes better. I personally think they're both great. So it's just a preference on what you prefer to taste. I wouldn't say that raw milk's healthier or pasteurized or store-bought milk's healthier, because it's all healthy. It's just, there's a reason it goes through that heating process and that pasteurization and homogenization process, because it's actually, some people's bodies maybe can't handle everything that's in the raw milk, so they heat that process to make it healthier. So there's nothing added to the milk. There's nothing taken away from the milk. It's just a process to make sure that it's all 100% safe for you to drink.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very similar to the way, any food that you eat that's in a can or juice in the store, like apple cider, that's all pasteurized as well, to Joy's point, just to make sure it's better for storage and shelf stable as we transfer it. We had a question. How many dogs do you have on the farm? Very important question.
Just one, just Jeb. We only have Jeb here.
And then a final question we had that came in. If a mother cow is black and white, can the baby be brown?
So if we breed a black and white cow to a brown Swiss, you'll get what's a cross calf, and then she'll kind of come out looking chocolate. We actually call them chocolate. If you breed a black and white cow to a bull that's red and white, you can get a red and white calf. That's if I got to remember, go back to high school when I learned about that whole genetic process.
The Punnett square.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we can mate them different ways to get different colors. But if you breed a black and white one to a brown one, you're going to get what's called what we call is a chocolate, where she'll be like this really rich, dark brown, borderline black color.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Joy. As I mentioned to everyone, the recording of this tour is available on Facebook and will be available on YouTube. So if you enjoyed it and want to share with a friend or a fellow classmate, feel free to do that. If you have questions for Joy, feel free to reach out to her via the Facebook page. She's more than happy to answer them. On your way out, if you're tuning in via Zoom, a survey will pop up on your web browser. Please fill that out so we can get your feedback and find ways to better enhance these virtual experiences. But I'd like to go back to Joy and just say, any last comments for our audience today?
So I appreciate everybody getting on and tuning on and learning about our farm. I encourage you guys, any of you guys out there, to ask the farmer, to ask questions. Don't go to Google, because you can't believe everything you read on Google. I believe there's a saying, trust a farmer, not Google. I encourage you to ask those questions, and please, build a relationship with us. I'm happy to answer any questions you want. Please go to my JoBo Facebook page, and you can ask me any questions you want, and I'd be happy to answer. And if I can't answer it, I will be sure to get the answer for you. So with that, I thank you for coming to JoBo, and I hope you all enjoyed the tour.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And we hope to see you next time.
Debbie's showing how soft that is.
That's great.